Tom, what is your favorite thing to do in Atlanta? We're going to have a little bit of free time. Not much, but if there is some, I mean, people have said the Ferris wheel. You're talking about the Braves. They're in season right now. I don't know if
All-Star break, bro.
Yeah, well, it is the All-Star break. Never mind. So what is the thing to do down in Atlanta, Tom?
Well, I used to come here a lot more before my mother passed, but I would hike Stone Mountain, go out east and hike the mountain. There's a ton of stuff to do around here. There's water parks, there's Six Flags.
Go to the varsity. What do you have? What do you have? What do you have?
That's right. We used to do that quite a lot when I was a little bit younger. Just about 10 years ago, we'd go to the varsity. So there's a ton of stuff to do.
It's a good little spot. Well, Tom, I'm glad to have you in person. We don't get to see each other that much outside of football season, so it's good to have you down here. I've seen a bunch of polls already of where people are going to vote their SEC East and West. Are you a guy that waits till Thursday to send in your ballot, or do you have a pretty good idea where you're going to rate the teams upcoming this week already?
I think the ballot is due. Is it due Thursday? Do you know that?
It's Wednesday or Thursday. They send out that email that, hey, this is the deadline or whatever, but somewhere around then.
Yeah, I spend what I'll do is when there's a break in the action, I'll take about a half hour and I'll do my all-conference team, and then I'll go through the order of finish. And I haven't really given a whole lot of thought about it so far yet, other than I'll probably pick Georgia and Alabama again. But, I'll probably do that sometime on Wednesday, I would think.
Yeah. Jalen Catalon, the only one that really has a chance to be first-team All-SEC. I mean, some would say, well, what about KJ? Well, Bryce Young's going to be the first-team quarterback. I think that's a foregone conclusion at this point. Can Jalen be the first-team safety after missing half a season due to injury?
Well, he could, because then everyone knows that he had 99 tackles as a redshirt freshman, and what a breakout year that was. A huge role in that team that performed above expectations. But I don't know, there's a few others. I would think Bumper Pool would get some consideration.
I just think Dallas Turner and Will Anderson might be leading that list. But.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, I think of Will Anderson as an edge guy, and maybe he's probably going to be a linebacker, but I think of him more as an end. But anyway, yeah, it'll be hard to break through at linebacker. But Catalon would have a chance, and then O-line, you got guys like Wagner and stuff. But I know that there are other, tackles returning in the conference that might have a little bit more measurables over Dalton. Yeah. But I think the good thing about this Arkansas roster is there's a lot of veteran guys. I mean, they might not be first-team All-SEC consideration guys, but they've been productive in these schemes, and they have both their coordinators back, and there's reason to hope that the Razorbacks are going to be in a lot of their games this year,
So the Heisman Trophy winner's first team, which he should be, considering the season he had a year ago. Is KJ get much love for second-team All-SEC? That's, to me, what this week's all about. I think Alabama and Georgia will lead the East and West in so many ways, not just preseason predictions, Tom, but also order of finish. But even in things like who's the second best quarterback in each division? Well, I think KJ's in there with a couple other guys will be considered.
Oh yeah, there's no question about that. Just based on his production and the fact that he led the team in rushing too, and he completed 67.1% of his passes. I think Hendon Hooker at Tennessee will get some consideration. And there's other guys. I mean, there's been dudes who've transferred, and the Ole Miss kid, and then Spencer Rattler at South Carolina. But I do, Miles Brennan is back at LSU, but will he even win the starting job? And Will Rogers at Mississippi State will get some consideration. But I would think behind the Heisman Trophy winner that you would find Jefferson, Rogers, and Hendon Hooker would be in that next tier, and there'll be some guys who will vote KJ second team, I would think.
Greg Sankey is going to be first in the main room coming up. I think it's at 11:30 our time, 10:30 Central Time, and I know he's going to get asked a lot of questions into the conference expansion, NIL, and probably those same questions about 50 times over. What is something specific, Tom, you're intrigued to hear his response or an answer to this week?
Well, I wrote about this this morning in the paper. I think college football needs to hear a voice that says, yes, the implementation of NIL was wild, but here's the direction we believe we're headed. And I don't think it means we've got this under control. I just think it means, we're going to work with agencies, whether it's, federal agencies or state, to try to get uniform guidelines so we don't have outbursts like the Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher deal. And I think that Greg Sankey will provide some words and thoughts in that direction to maybe get people thinking, okay, there's an entity out there, even if it's the SEC, that's going to kind of be on the leading edge, just like they've been on multiple topics in recent years, that's going to take a hard look at the NIL and do it the best way for the players to make their money, but for schools to not use it out of the context that it was built to be. And it seems like that's already happened in year one.
Mm-hmm. We're talking with Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Whole Hog Sports, as we are live from Radio Row, College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia. A guy that's set to make his debut today is Brian Kelly. And not that I don't want to hear what Lane Kiffin has to say, not so much Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri, but I want to see how this guy handles it. Now, there's tons of pressure at Notre Dame. We know that as the head coach, but this media, this entity is going to be, I think, a little new to him as the head coach. And there are expectations even in year one at LSU. How do you think he handles those, not only today but this year?
Great question. And I'm actually writing about LSU tomorrow since, this is opening day and this is a program that's last three coaches have won national championships. And he does walk into a pressure cooker. And he did make some missteps with the badly pronounced y'all and this goofy dancing thing he did, which I mentioned on this show the other day. But I've talked to some folks already here in town that think he works very well with the media. He's really got kind of a wicked sense of humor. And he does inherit a team that doesn't have a lot of starters. I want to say it's 3 on both sides of the ball, which that's really minimal in the SEC. But they got 2 guys from Arkansas that are going to help out in their secondary, it looks like. I think both of them, Fouché and Brooks, will probably end up being starters or at least big-time contributors. So there's leftover talent. They've got to solve their quarterback situation, as I mentioned. The kid Daniels from Arizona State transferred in, and they got a highly touted signee, son of former LSU quarterback Jamie Howard and Miles Brennan. So they've got to sort that out quickly. And, they got a decent opening schedule. I think Mississippi State's their first conference game in about week 2 or 3. And I think they open against Florida State in New Orleans.
Correct.
I believe that's right.
Sunday night, maybe it's a Monday night.
So good game there, but I don't know. There'll be a lot of attention on him, and I don't root against the guy, and they've had good success with their Midwestern coaches. Nick Saban falls into that mode, and Les Miles. So he certainly has proven he can build a winner. Can he build a championship team? We'll find out here.
Tom, Greg Sankey kind of gives the state of the conference and really the state of college football and the state of college sports as the commissioner of the SEC a little bit later this morning. Ty touched on that. I'm sure expansion and the ever-changing conference landscapes will be woven into his address today. What are some of the other topics or what are some of the other big things that will come out of his, what usually is about 45 minutes or so that he addresses the media?
Yeah, exactly. And, I touched on the NIL, which I think is a big deal, but I also think that he understands a lot of the focus of fans and media is on what's going to happen with realignment and expansion. And, does the SEC have a counter move? I mean, we're hearing pushback from basketball coaches that don't want to have these super mega conferences. Is 16 the right number for the SEC with the additions of Oklahoma and Texas? Those are real questions that if you go beyond 16, you've opened that is mega conference. And 16 is a ton of teams to begin with. So they've got to, the SEC first has to sort out what their scheduling will be like with the 16. And then, to take it beyond there, you're entering some waters that we haven't been in before. So I think he'll touch on both of those and, just kind of his standard things that he does.
I'll be interested to see if autonomy and, the top 50 to 60 schools breaking away, another division, something along those lines is written into a script for today.
It could be, and of course they would be on the front edge of that if there's going to be any autonomy, because he's hinted at it before. And it's what I referenced a minute ago with the NIL legislation, how it came in, and then there's just this explosion of people doing the rules differently. And so I do think we'll probably hear some hopefully reassuring words from him that they're going to work with the agencies to try to get it all in one line.
Tom, let me flip the script for a sec. And this happened after I went to bed. You might have seen it live. Tommy was talking about he watched the first 10 selections, but 3 Razorbacks drafted last night. You have Caden Wallace going to the Kansas City Royals, also Peyton Paulette and Robert Moore getting drafted as well. I know that we're football focused and center focused on that for good reason down here in Atlanta, but your thoughts, and did you want any of those guys to go to the Braves? Were you kind of disappointed that you to see one of them to go to the Braves?
I wouldn't have minded any of those guys going to the Braves, and even though it might take a year or two for them to get there, but happy for them. I mean, Dave Van Horn was right when he said that Robert Moore, he didn't have a big hitting year, but he said the scouts are so high on him with his defense, he projects to be a major league defender, and he's going to get drafted, as Dave put it, pretty good, and he did. And so, no surprises that Wallace went 1, Paulette was in there, and Moore. And then the Phillips kid, Cole Phillips from Texas, got drafted by the Braves. And so the way Dave put it is there's such a premium on these teams getting these guys signed. You don't want to have a lot of misses in the 20 that he feels like if you hear a guy's name get drafted, they've probably already worked out their deal, which means they might lose the right-hander.
And that's kind of the situation that we could also talk about with Connor, another right-hander that Arkansas would love to have back. And I remember, because you asked that question to Dave in his end-of-season press conference, and he said, if they end up signing, then that means they probably have worked out a deal. Are you leaning a certain way with what his decision is going to be?
Well, I basically keep my feelings and thoughts out of it. To see Nolan back with this team, it would be amazing. They would have such great depth of frontline pitching, but it's all his call. What kind of deal he could work out to sign, and what kind of leverage he would have going into next year. And I think he's a guy who, Dave put it, enjoys putting on the uniform in representing the Razorbacks. So I think whichever way it goes, Connor will be in a good place, and if they don't have him, I think there'll be enough pitchers, and if they do, it'll just be gravy.
All right, Tom, good to see you in person, and we'll catch up with you later in the week here from SEC Media Days.
You betcha, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Tom Murphy with us live from Radio Row at the College Football Hall of Fame.
At BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon Finals, Major League Baseball, the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet online, where the game starts.